all hands meeting at exactly 9:47 in the morning. He was named Chief Information Officer, effective immediately, with a compensation package that included a $245,000 base salary, representing a $95,000 increase from his current senior security architect position. The main conference room erupted in enthusiastic applause. I clapped along with everyone else, maintaining the same carefully constructed neutral expression I had perfected over my 22 years of watching less qualified individuals climb the corporate ladder straight past me. What they did not announce during that meeting was my own compensation adjustment. That particular news came later, delivered privately by Brenda Hayes, our Vice President of Human Resources, in a hastily scheduled meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon that lasted exactly 16 minutes. "Richard, we really want you to know just how much Apex Systems values your extraordinary contributions," Brenda said, sliding a single-page document across her polished mahogany desk. "Your mentorship of Tyler has been invaluable to his professional development and to our entire organization's ongoing success. We are pleased to offer you a loyalty recognition bonus of $16,000, payable over the next 8 months." I read the document twice. $16,000 spread over 8 months, which equated to exactly $2,000 per month before taxes, for 12 long years of training the exact person who just received a $95,000 raise and a C-level executive title. "This is a one-time recognition payment," I said, making sure to keep my voice level and devoid of any emotion. "Not a permanent salary adjustment." "That is correct," Brenda replied with a practiced, sympathetic smile. "We feel this appropriately recognizes your extensive mentorship contributions while simultaneously maintaining the structural integrity of our corporate compensation framework." I signed the acknowledgement form without a moment's hesitation. Brenda seemed genuinely pleased that I had not argued or raised my voice. She had no way of knowing that I had stopped arguing with Apex Systems approximately 11 months ago, right around the time I finally realized that actual competence and unwavering loyalty were considered liabilities in their corporate promotion calculus rather than valuable assets. "My name is Richard Vance. I am 52 years old, and I had just sat in a room and watched the junior developer I trained from his first day leapfrog right over me into the Chief Information Officer position, while I received what effectively amounted to a monthly tip for 12 years of relentless, exhausting work. I originally joined Apex Systems in April of 2012 as a senior technology systems architect, bringing with me extensive expertise in cybersecurity frameworks and complex cloud migration strategies. My specific role involved designing secure infrastructure solutions that help these institutions modernize their fragile legacy systems without ever compromising their critical data integrity. It was demanding work that required a deep understanding of both technology and regulatory compliance. Tyler Brooks joined the company in August of 2012 as a fresh-faced junior developer, straight out of a state university with a computer science degree and exactly zero practical, real-world experience in enterprise-level security architecture. He was 23 years old at the time, overwhelmingly enthusiastic, and paralyzed by the sheer complexity of the financial sector's strict compliance requirements. His first assignment was assisting me with a massive cloud migration project for Global Trust Financial, a $620 million initiative designed to move their entire core banking platform to Amazon Web Services securely. I spent 11 grueling weeks teaching him the absolute fundamentals of the job. I taught him how to design secure network architectures from scratch. I showed him how to implement robust multi-factor authentication protocols that could withstand targeted attacks. I explained how to properly configure intrusion detection systems that could handle real-time transaction monitoring for millions of accounts simultaneously. He constantly confused basic security concepts and made glaring configuration errors that would have easily gotten him terminated if anyone else had been actively reviewing his work. But I covered for him. I tirelessly corrected his mistakes before they ever reached our client deliverables. I walked him through eSingle security protocol until he understood not just the technical implementation, but the fundamental reasoning behind why we did things that way. I spent countless evenings, long after regular work hours had ended, explaining dense compliance frameworks that really should have been mandatory prerequisites for his position. By month 8, Tyler was finally functional. By month 18, he was passably competent. By year 4, he was genuinely skilled at the technical aspects of the work. I had essentially provided him with a fully customized graduate-level education in enterprise cybersecurity, all while maintaining my own heavy client responsibilities and never missing a single project deadline. The reality of the corporate world, however, is rarely so just. Apex Systems saw my dedication not as leadership material, but as a reliable utility. I was the engine in the basement, keeping everything running perfectly while Tyler was becoming the shiny hood ornament. As I walked out of Brenda's office that afternoon, clutching my loyalty bonus paperwork, I didn't feel angry. I felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. The social contract between employer and employee had been decisively broken. They had made their choice about what they valued, and they had put a specific price tag on my 12 years of service. Tomorrow, they were going to learn exactly how much that choice was really going to cost them. Here is the unvarnished truth about what happened over the course of those 12 years. During that extensive period, I personally guided Tyler through 122 distinct, complex client engagements. I taught him how to build dynamic security frameworks that Apex Systems eventually packaged and sold as their own proprietary methodology to dozens of other lucrative clients. I brought him into high-stakes strategy meetings with C-suite executives at massive Fortune 500 companies, deliberately coaching him beforehand on exactly how to present dense technical security concepts to non-technical business leaders without making their eyes glaze over. When Apex Systems unexpectedly won the Global Trust Financial contract back in 2018, it was a $4,500,000 engagement that instantly became our absolute largest client relationship by a massive margin. It was the crown jewel of our portfolio. I was the one who designed the initial, comprehensive cybersecurity architecture that ultimately secured that historic deal. Tyler had assisted me with some of the basic data entry and low-level configuration tasks, but the core methodology, the complex algorithms, and the fail-safe protocols were mine. By 2023, when that massive contract came up for renewal and expanded to $5,200,000 annually, Tyler was the one standing at the front of the room, presenting the updated security frameworks directly to Global Trust Financial's board of directors. He was using the exact architectures I had painstakingly taught him how to build, explaining the threat models using the exact analogies I had fed him. I never once received any formal credit in those high-level board presentations. My name only ever appeared in the dense project documentation, buried deep in the technical appendices under the title of Senior Systems Architect for Infrastructure Design. Tyler's name, however, proudly adorned eSingle presentation's slide as the lead security architect for strategic implementation. The pattern became distressingly consistent. I built the intellectual property, spending weeks testing and refining the systems. Tyler then delivered that property to the clients with the unearned confidence and polished presentation skills I had spent years coaching him to develop. By the end of 2024, Apex Systems had rapidly grown to encompass 530 employees, largely on the back of the proprietary systems I had designed. Tyler had been officially promoted to Senior Security Architect, which was supposedly a lateral move to my exact position, despite the glaring fact that he possessed a full decade less experience than I did. His base salary had subsequently increased by $19,000, bringing him to $155,000 annually. My own salary had only increased to $145,000. That was a $10,000 negative disparity for someone who held 10 additional years of hard-won expertise and carried the ultimate responsibility for eSingle, significant security framework operating within our entire division. I raised this blatant disparity with Brenda Hayes during my 2024 annual performance review. Her practiced response was expertly diplomatic, but painfully clear in its meaning. Richard, she had said, leaning forward and clasping her hands together, thoughtfully, you are valuable to us as a specialized technical expert. But Tyler has consistently demonstrated exceptional client-facing skills and a unique kind of innovative thinking that aligns with our aggressive growth trajectory. We simply need different types of talent for different roles within the organization. Translation: Tyler was vastly superior at playing the game of corporate politics and maintaining high executive visibility. I was vastly superior at doing the actual grueling work of cybersecurity architecture. Apex Systems valued the former significantly more than the latter. They were willing to pay for style over substance, assuming the substance would always just magically be there, working in the background. I stopped pushing for promotions or raises after that demoralizing conversation. I realized it was a futile effort. Instead, I shifted my entire focus to documenting everything. I documented each single framework I designed, each proprietary methodology I developed, each sensitive client relationship I maintained, and each single hour I spent training Tyler and the 9 other junior developers who had rotated through our division over the years. I documented the specific logic trees, the failover protocols, and the custom encryption key management systems I had built from scratch. I did this because I understood something that Brenda Hayes, Philip Grant, and the rest of the Apex Systems executive team apparently could not comprehend. Institutional knowledge is only valuable when the institution can actually retain it. They didn't realize it was portable. I was the load-bearing wall holding up their entire financial sector division, and they were treating me like a fresh coat of paint. As I watched Tyler accept his Chief Information Officer title on that Thursday morning, I knew exactly what my documentation represented. It was an exhaustive ledger of exactly what they were about to lose. I had spent 12 years building their impenetrable fortress, and I was the only one who actually knew where all the structural weaknesses were hidden. When Tyler gave his acceptance speech, thanking the leadership team for their incredible vision and support, he didn't mention my name once. He didn't mention the man who had taught him how to read a network topology map or how to configure a basic firewall. He was convinced of his own manufactured brilliance. That night, I sat in my home office and reviewed the architecture documents for the Global Trust financial account. It was a beautiful system, complex and elegant, featuring behavioral analytics and anomaly detection protocols that were years ahead of the industry standard. It was also a system that Tyler Brooks did not understand on a fundamental level. He knew how to sell it, he knew how to talk about its benefits, but if a true crisis ever occurred, he would be incapable of diagnosing the root cause. He wouldn't know how to navigate the decision trees or interpret the raw data logs. The actors were all in their places, unaware that the safety net had just been removed. The emergency client call happened the next morning. Exactly at 5:45 on a Friday, Global Trust Financial's Chief Information Security Officer, Victor Dawson, had discovered a massive critical security breach deep within their primary customer database during a routine overnight scan. There had been unauthorized access to approximately 410,000 sensitive customer records, including social security numbers, residential addresses, and detailed financial account information. The advanced intrusion detection systems we had implemented were suddenly showing erratic alert patterns that directly conflicted with their own internal security protocols. Victor was frantic, unable to determine whether the devastating breach had originated from sophisticated external threats or hidden internal vulnerabilities. Tyler called my personal cell phone at 5:51 in the morning, his voice tight, high-pitched, and laced with undeniable panic. "Richard, I desperately need you on this call right now," he pleaded breathlessly. "Victor is asking dense technical questions about the network segmentation architecture, and I cannot explain the back-end firewall configuration logic to him. He is threatening to terminate the entire contract this morning and immediately report Apex Systems to the federal financial regulators. What specifically is Victor asking you about the database access controls for the customer information system?" I asked, my voice smooth and unbothered. "He is screaming that our authentication protocols failed to prevent the breach, Tyler stammered, sounding like he was on the verge of tears, and he wants to know exactly why our multi-layer security matrix didn't trigger the automatic lockdown procedures when the data volume spiked. Richard, I swear I don't know how to explain the behavioral decision tree logic. I don't understand the algorithms well enough to defend them. I knew exactly how to explain it. I knew because I had personally designed that specific, intricate authentication system back in 2020, and I had spent 4 agonizing weeks explicitly teaching Tyler the complex security reasoning behind using advanced behavioral analytics for real-time anomaly detection. He had, quite predictably, forgotten everything the moment it wasn't needed for a slick sales presentation. I will be on the call in 5 minutes, I said calmly. Send me the secure meeting link. At exactly 5:56 in the morning, I joined the chaotic video conference. There were 25 people crammed into the virtual room, mostly from Global Trust Financial's IT security and legal teams. Tyler was on camera, looking exhausted, visibly sweating and stressed. Victor Dawson looked furious, his face red and tense. "Richard, thank God you are here," Tyler gasped with palpable relief the absolute second my video feed connected. "Victor has some technical questions about the breach response protocols that I think you are better suited to answer." Victor did not waste a single second with professional pleasantries. "Mr. Vance, your proprietary security architecture has catastrophically failed to prevent unauthorized access to our most sensitive customer database. Before we discuss immediately terminating this contract and filing mandatory regulatory reports that will destroy your company, I need to understand exactly why your authentication systems allowed this massive breach to occur under our noses." I slowly opened my laptop wider, calmly pulled up the extensive security documentation files, and began walking Victor and his panicked team through the precise technical reasoning for e-single protocol decision, e-layered access control, and e-monitoring system configuration. I spent 42 uninterrupted minutes carefully explaining complex cybersecurity concepts, behavioral algorithms, and network segmentation theory to a tense room full of IT managers, legal counsel, and compliance officers. Halfway through my detailed explanation, a fundamental life-altering realization suddenly washed over me. I was doing exactly what I had done each single day for 12 years. I was seamlessly solving catastrophic problems that Tyler was incapable of solving. I was salvaging and maintaining critical client relationships that Tyler couldn't manage to save his life. I was providing the foundational expertise that Apex Systems actively valued at a mere $16,000 bonus, while simultaneously paying Tyler an exorbitant $245,000 C-level salary simply to sit there and take the credit for my work. Tyler stumbles during a crucial client presentation, and I step in with the necessary technical details to save the pitch. Tyler can't answer a basic security question from a vendor, and I gracefully provide the methodology explanation to cover his ignorance. Tyler needs urgent help with complex compliance documentation, and I practically write the requirements for him. For 12 long years, I had been his invisible safety net, his reliable technical backup, and his entire institutional memory. And Apex Systems had just publicly announced that they valued that indispensable safety net at exactly $2,000 a month for 8 months. At 6:38 in the morning, while I was carefully explaining the behavioral analytics methodology for the third time to a Global Trust Financial vice president who still could not quite grasp the detection algorithms, I made a decision. I stopped talking abruptly, right in the middle of a sentence. I stared directly into the camera lens. "Victor, I sincerely apologize for the interruption, but I find that I need to step away from this call immediately. I am sure Tyler, as your new Chief Information Officer, can adequately address any of your remaining technical questions." The crowded digital conference room went completely, utterly silent. Tyler's face instantly went a sickly, pale white. "Richard, wait, please," he begged, his voice cracking. I reached out, disconnected from the call, shut down my laptop, and walked upstairs to my master bedroom, where my wife Sarah was just finishing getting dressed for her own workday. "You are home awfully early," Sarah said, looking confused. "I thought you had that massive emergency call with Global Trust Financial this morning?" "I did," I replied evenly. "I left the call." "You just left?" In the middle of an active emergency? In the middle of explaining something critical? In the middle of explaining something that Tyler Brooks should be capable of explaining himself. If he is actually worth $245,000 as their brand new chief information officer, I stated. Sarah sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, watching me carefully. At 50 years old, she had seen me come home from work utterly exhausted, deeply frustrated, and unappreciated more times than either of us cared to count. This was me finally definitively drawing a hard line in the sand. "What exactly are you doing, Richard?" she asked softly. "I am doing something I should have done 11 months ago, the moment I realized this company values flashy presentation skills over actual, verifiable competence. I am not covering for Tyler's shocking incompetence anymore. If he cannot answer Global Trust Financial's basic security questions, that is Apex Systems' problem now. It is no longer mine." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and calmly switched it to airplane mode. The screen instantly went dark, cutting me off from the chaos I had just left behind. Here is what I eventually learned about the absolute chaos that was actively unfolding at Apex Systems while I was peacefully enjoying a long, quiet morning walk around my neighborhood. Left to his own devices, Tyler failed to answer Global Trust Financial's relentless technical security questions. He desperately tried to deflect. He desperately tried to schedule follow-up calls, promising detailed written responses by the end of the day. But Victor Dawson was not accepting any deflections. He demanded immediate, concrete answers about the devastating breach right then and there, or he was going to unilaterally terminate the $5,200,000 annual contract and immediately file severe regulatory complaints with federal authorities. Without my voice on the line to guide him, Tyler had no answers. He foolishly tried to explain the complex authentication protocols on his own and got the core security logic backward. He panicked, attempting to defend the breach response procedures, and in doing so, he directly contradicted our own regulated system documentation. By 7:45 in the morning, Victor had abruptly ended the disastrous call in disgust. 10 minutes later, he fired off a scathing email directly to Apex Systems' Chief Executive Officer, Philip Grant, formally notifying him that Global Trust Financial was immediately suspending all ongoing work, pending a massive, comprehensive third-party security audit and a probable regulatory investigation. Suspending all billable work on a $5,200,000 annual contract tends to get a chief executive officer's attention quickly. By 8:30 in the morning, Philip had convened a panicked emergency executive meeting. By 9:15, they had universally determined that they needed me back on a call with Victor to somehow salvage the rapidly deteriorating relationship. At exactly 10 in the morning, someone knocked on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Brenda Hayes standing on my porch, dressed in her sharpest business attire, looking stressed and inconvenienced. I slowly opened the door, but I deliberately did not invite her inside my home. "Richard, we desperately need to talk right now," Brenda demanded, her voice tight. "May I please come inside?" "I would strongly prefer to keep this conversation as brief as possible," I replied calmly, leaning against the doorframe. "What exactly do you need, Brenda?" She took a sharp breath, clearly furious at being kept standing on a residential porch like a common solicitor. "Philip needs you to join an emergency escalation call with Victor Dawson at exactly 2 in the afternoon today. Global Trust Financial is actively threatening to permanently terminate the entire contract and file massive regulatory complaints unless we can provide satisfactory answers to their security questions immediately. And Tyler was unfortunately not able to adequately address their specific technical concerns this morning." "That is unfortunate," I said, keeping my expression neutral. "However, Tyler is the brand new Chief Information Officer. Surely a man with that impressive executive title and that level of compensation should be more than capable of addressing basic technical questions about the security systems he has been personally presenting to Global Trust Financial for the past 4 years. Richard, we both know well that you are the one who actually designed those systems," Brenda snapped, losing her diplomatic veneer. "You possess the deep technical expertise we desperately need on this call. Then perhaps Apex Systems should have carefully considered that undeniable fact before hastily promoting Tyler to Chief Information Officer and insulting me with a $16,000 loyalty bonus. I countered smoothly. Brenda's expression hardened into a glare. This is not about your personal compensation, Richard. This is about a $5,200,000 client relationship that is currently in severe jeopardy and possible federal regulatory violations that could permanently damage our entire business reputation. No, Brenda, I corrected her, my voice dropping an octave. This is exactly about my compensation. It is about Apex Systems making a conscious corporate decision that 12 years of building the proprietary intellectual property that generates $5,200,000 in annual revenue is only worth a tiny bonus. Meanwhile, the person who learned everything he knows from me gets a $245,000 salary just to confidently present my work. You actively made that decision. Now you get to live with the devastating consequences of it. Furthermore, let us discuss the legal reality of what you have done. You deliberately presented a junior, fundamentally incompetent employee as a senior mastermind architect to win that massive contract. That is the literal definition of fraudulent inducement. Legally speaking, because of your misrepresentation, that $5,200,000 contract is void ab initio. It was built on a lie, and Victor Dawson knows it now. Are you officially refusing to participate in critical client calls? Brenda asked, her voice trembling slightly with suppressed rage, because that could easily be considered gross insubordination. I am not officially refusing anything, I smiled pleasantly. I am simply unavailable for the 2 o'clock call. I have pressing personal matters to handle. What personal matters? She demanded. That is private. If Apex Systems desperately needs high-level technical expertise to maintain the global trust financial relationship, I suggest asking your well-compensated Chief Information Officer. That is precisely why you are paying him $245,000, is it not? For his unparalleled cybersecurity expertise. I closed the heavy front door before she could formulate a response, leaving her standing alone on my porch. The 2 o'clock emergency call with Global Trust Financial happened without my participation. I know this for a fact because Philip Grant sent me a frantic email at exactly 3:15 in the afternoon, describing it as a difficult and hostile conversation that would have immensely benefited from my specialized technical input. Translation: it was an absolute, unmitigated disaster. What I learned later through a reliable former colleague was that Tyler had foolishly attempted to answer Victor's technical questions yet again, gotten the core security protocols wrong yet again, and Victor had furiously ended the call after barely 20 minutes. Global Trust Financial formally terminated their massive contract at exactly 4 in the afternoon that same day, and they immediately filed preliminary regulatory complaints regarding Apex Systems' negligent security practices. $5,200,000 in annual revenue was instantly gone, plus the looming threat of severe federal investigations. By Monday morning, I had received an urgent call from Philip's executive assistant requesting a mandatory 8 o'clock meeting. I arrived exactly on time. Philip was waiting anxiously in the large executive conference room, flanked by Brenda and Gregory Mills, Apex Systems Chief Operating Officer. The presence of the Chief Operating Officer clearly communicated that they finally understood the absolute gravity of the situation. Richard, thank you so much for coming in, Philip began, using his most conciliatory executive tone. I want to start by explicitly stating that we deeply value your extraordinary contributions to Apex Systems, and we realize there may have been a terrible miscommunication regarding your vital role and your compensation. We want to discuss a permanent compensation adjustment that truly reflects your immense value to this organization. Brenda chimed in quickly. We are fully prepared to offer you an immediate salary increase to $175,000, along with a significantly expanded bonus structure. $175,000. It was a substantial raise, yet still $70,000 less than Tyler's shiny new executive salary. They were offering me a raise to come back and clean up the catastrophic mess caused by the man they had promoted over me. That is a generous offer, I said calmly, slowly standing up from my chair, but I am going to respectfully decline. I resign, effective immediately. You systematically undervalued the single person who generated your true intellectual property, while wildly promoting the person who merely commoditized it. That is not a sustainable business model. Good luck explaining fraudulent inducement to the federal regulators. I walked out of the conference room, leaving them sitting in stunned silence. The immediate aftermath of my abrupt resignation was swift and decisive. Over the weekend prior to that fateful Monday meeting, I had contacted several former colleagues who had left Apex Systems over the past few years for various competitor firms. I asked each of them a simple question. Would their current employer be interested in acquiring someone with my specific technical background and extensive enterprise architecture expertise? Ezingle, one of them, said yes immediately. Word spreads fast in the tight-knit cybersecurity industry, and the spectacular implosion of the global trust financial relationship was already the hottest topic of whispered gossip. By Wednesday afternoon, barely 48 hours after I walked out of Apex Systems, for the final time I had 3 formal, lucrative job offers sitting in my personal email inbox. The absolute best offer came from Nexus Tech Partners, a fierce, rapidly growing competitor firm that specialized almost exclusively in high-level financial sector cybersecurity. They offered me a base salary of $215,000, a generous performance bonus structure, full executive benefits, and a $30,000 signing bonus just to walk through their front door. They desperately wanted someone who could actually build complex, proprietary cybersecurity frameworks from scratch, someone who deeply understood the intricate technical requirements, and someone who already possessed rock-solid relationships with major institutional clients. They wanted exactly what I had been providing to Apex Systems for a fraction of the cost. I enthusiastically accepted their incredible offer on Thursday morning and officially started my new role the following Monday. Here is exactly what happened at Apex Systems after my sudden departure. Without my constant, invisible technical support propping him up, Tyler Brooks floundered. He tried to schedule numerous apology calls with Victor Dawson to rebuild the shattered global trust financial relationship. But Victor flatly refused to even engage with him. Approximately 6 weeks after I officially joined Nexus Tech Partners, Global Trust Financial abruptly moved their entire massive cybersecurity contract over to us. I did not need to pitch them. Victor called me directly at my brand new office and simply asked if Nexus Tech Partners could reliably provide the exact same elite level of technical sophistication and flawless execution that I had previously delivered while working at Apex Systems. I confidently told him, yes, absolutely. He immediately asked me to build him a comprehensive proposal. 3 short weeks later, Nexus Tech Partners officially signed a staggering $6,100,000 annual contract with Global Trust Financial. That was nearly $1 million more than Apex Systems had been charging them, and Victor happily paid the premium because he finally knew exactly who was actually building the fortress. But Global Trust Financial was certainly not the only major client relationship that fell apart for my former employer. Over the grueling course of the next 8 months, 4 other massive institutional clients reduced their active contracts with Apex Systems, or they terminated them entirely. Ezingle's catastrophic situation followed the exact same painfully predictable pattern. The clients would ask technical questions that Tyler simply could not answer. They would experience critical security performance issues that Tyler could not properly diagnose. They would raise complex compliance concerns that Tyler was unequipped to address. Without me there to constantly feed him the correct answers, his profound technical ignorance was fully exposed to the entire industry. Apex Systems' total annual revenue plummeted by a devastating $8,900,000 in the first year after I left. In sheer desperation, they hired 3 brand new senior architects to try and hastily rebuild their gutted technical capabilities. The intricate, customized frameworks I had built over 12 long years took years to properly replicate, and the new hires lacked the deep client relationships and the sterling industry reputation that I had spent decades cultivating. I politely but firmly declined his frantic offer. I was already making far more than that, At Nexus Tech Partners, I was consistently hitting all my performance bonus targets, and I was finally experiencing a level of professional respect that I had never once felt at Apex Systems. More importantly, I was truly valued for my actual skills. 18 months after joining Nexus Tech Partners, I was officially promoted to Senior Director, bringing my base salary up to $275,000. 2 years after that, I became their Vice President of Financial Technology Security, commanding a salary of $315,000. At 52 years old, I am making vastly more money than I ever thought possible, and I am actually thoroughly enjoying my complex work again. As for Tyler Brooks, he only lasted 11 agonizing months as Chief Information Officer at Apex Systems after my departure. Without my daily technical support, his glaring limitations became painfully obvious to everyone in the executive suite. He was publicly and humiliatingly demoted back down to a senior systems architect role, enduring a massive pay cut that slashed his salary down to $120,000. He resigned in disgrace barely 6 months later. Apex Systems made a fundamental, fatal corporate error. They foolishly confused slick client presentation skills with actual, hard-earned technical capabilities. They arrogantly promoted charisma over genuine competence. They valued the shiny hood ornament vastly more than the reliable engine that actually powered the entire machine. That single arrogant mistake cost them $8,900,000 in recurring revenue. It cost them their absolute largest institutional client. It damaged their mark reputation. And it destroyed the foundational institutional knowledge that had taken 12 years to build. All because they wanted to save some money on my compensation while rewarding someone who could not function without me. The absolute most dangerous employee for a company to systematically undervalue is never the loud one who constantly complains or regularly threatens to quit. It is the quiet professional who builds all your institutional knowledge, maintains your most critical client relationships, and consistently generates your primary competitive advantages, right up until the exact day they finally decide they are done subsidizing your catastrophic lack of judgment. Sometimes the greatest, most powerful act of profound self-respect is walking away and letting a company discover exactly how expensive their disrespect truly is.